I'm Thomas, and you're listening to the Gracing Podcast, where this week we are going to talk about the Oregon Trail Gravel Grinder, one of the top-notch gravel stage races over in the United States. So we are a bit in the stage racing phase. In last week's episode, if you didn't listen to it, we talked all about the migration gravel in Kenya. This week, Oregon Trail. And for this episode, we do a little departure from what we did in the last weeks because I didn't invite the two winners. And there are a few reasons, practical and philosophical, for it. Let's start with the latter. There is this saying, history is written by the winners. And that is very often true, but I think it's important to also hear the voices from the non-winners in history in general, and I think in gravel racing as well. So that is something that I think I will incorporate a bit more in the future. If you have thoughts on it, reach out, let me know what you think about getting some non-winning voices on here more regularly. On the pragmatic and the very good reason why I ended up inviting the two runner-ups to this episode is because they are some of the most interesting newcomers to the gravel scene. Really up-and-comers. On the women's side, I have Cécile Lejeune talking about her race, which ended up being a very hard-fought battle with none other than Sofia Gomez Villafañe, who ended up winning the race. And on the men's side, Skyler Taylor, who just lost to Cameron Jones, of course, Unbound winner this year, who, as you will find out, won with a descending masterclass in the men's race. And these hot young guns are voices you probably haven't heard that often. On top, we just had Cam on after Unbound. So I figured it's a good idea to have them on. Let me know what you think about this. Enjoy the conversations. Let's jump right into it. Actually, no. Just a little reminder before we get there that you can support us, keep the shows up and running by becoming a supporter on Patreon. So if you like what we do, consider jumping over there by just following the link in the show note and becoming a supporter. With that, you, among other things, also get access to our Discord server where you can join our gravel racing community that we have there. So consider that. And with that out of the way, now for real, let's get to the conversations. Now I'm joined by Skyler Taylor. Great that you are here. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we come to the main topic of today, which is Oregon Trail, I would actually like to hear a little bit more about yourself. I did some digging around before. There was this pretty good, if you followed Oregon Trail, chances are that you also came across the Payson McAlvin podcast episodes with the daily recaps. You were invited on one of them. There are a few interviews out there, but I think for many of our listeners and people in the gravel scene, it's probably fair to say that you're not yet a household name, even though that may be changing as we are. So I will give you my notes and then you tell me what I forgot, what we still need to hear. So it turns out you have like a cross-country Olympic background, like as a junior racer or something. And then you didn't race, if I understood it correctly, during college time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I took a few years off of racing when I was at university. That was after racing at a pretty high level as a junior and 1 year in the U23s. And then kind of when gravel started getting really popular in the US after college, I started riding my bike again and kind of gradually got more and more serious about the gravel racing and some endurance mountain bike as well.
How come you didn't? Because like here in Europe, anyways, we don't have all the college sports system. But I know in the US, like there is not as many colleges as you find in football or basketball or whatnot. But there are cycling colleges. But was it just not an option at your school, or did you on purpose decide to prioritize your academic pursuits?
Yeah, more the latter. I wanted to focus more on school, and cycling had been something I had done from a really young age. Like I started racing when I was 11 years old, and had been kind of my whole life. And I was ready to try something else and take a break. And then I came back to it later and realized that it was something that I really did enjoy and wanted to continue pursuing.
Yeah, makes sense. And take it really serious studies. I mean, yeah, makes sense. Like, especially in the US, you tend to have like these huge tuition fees usually. And actually, that's what I did. Like in school, I was rather focused on non-school stuff. But then, because I went to like this small little private university thing, I had to take a loan for it. And so, yeah, I was really focused. It turns out that works. Um, and I guess cycling also in the US, you don't get like the same type of scholarships like top basketball prospects or so, right?
Yeah, it's very different. There's a few schools that focus on like D1 cycling, but they didn't align very closely with the area of study I wanted to go into, and in-state schools, which are cheaper and things like that. So even if I had been really interested in pursuing cycling through college, it would have been more challenging.
Yeah. What did you study, by the way?
I studied math and computer science, and then I went into a job in technology after that.
Oh, lovely. One more very good gravel racer with a tech and software background. So, okay, then you started working, I then assume somewhere in the software industry, but and you started then racing gravel. I don't know if during COVID or something, if that might have been related, but that is what I found. You raced already last year, quite a few races, but you were still working at the time. And then in December, if I got it correct, you quit your job and decided to more or less go all in on gravel racing. Correct?
Yeah. So I had been racing relatively seriously for 2 or 3 years when I left my job this past December. And I was making small gains every year, but as you probably know, the level in gravel rises every year, and I wasn't really improving results wise because everything was improving around me, and felt like I was not doing a great job at my work or my racing because I was stretched very thin trying to do both at a high level. So I realized it would be a better use of time to take a year off of work and see if I could make a big jump in the racing. And so far, it's definitely exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, it paid off because like this year you had your first UCI gravel race win at the, what was it called? The Highlands Gravel Classics, I believe. It's the US, or one of the US based one. I actually don't know how many UCI events have in the States, but it's one of them. And you probably, the reason why most people now suddenly have you definitely on their agenda is because you managed to get the final wild card to become a Lifetime Grand Prix contender now. That is something we will get into a bit later as well. But I think we will get to Oregon Trail and your result there next and with a lot of detail. But I guess that kind of sums up your path so far. Nice. One more question, because I couldn't find out how old you actually are, because one topic we talk about on here relatively frequently is that gravel has kind of an issue with upcoming talents because we don't have structures for this, and the privateer game in particular makes it challenging for young talents to become pro athletes. And I think you're not 20 anymore.
No, I'm 29, so I'm a little old for going into the world tour or something like that. But gravel is a nice place to still be competitive and not need to be super young to get started.
Yeah, lovely. So let's jump to Oregon Trail. And the question that I like asking first is the role that the race played in your calendar, in your season planning? Was it like a priority A race type of race for you, or was it like somewhere between a training race, B race, or whatnot?
I would say it was close to an A race. I came into the year wanting to focus on both the Gravel Earth series and chasing a wildcard spot in the Life Time Grand Prix. And then depending on how those series were going, deciding where I was going to put my effort in the second half of the season. And I had my first kind of good result this year was getting 10th at Sandoval in Girona in February. So after that, I kind of had some motivation that I wanted to continue focusing on Gravel Earth. And then, as you said, the wildcard thing happened, and I went to Lost and Found, another Gravel Earth race, and had a pretty poor performance there. Had a tough day. So then I was not sure if points wise, if it was worth investing too much into Gravel Earth this year, especially with the Grand Prix working out. But I still wanted to do Oregon Trail because it's a race I've wanted to do for quite a while. And I just think it's a really cool format, and I wanted to do some more stage racing. And now that went pretty well, I'm trying to decide whether it's worth going to Spain at the end and trying to finish off the series, or if that's too much travel, because it comes pretty shortly before the end of the Lifetime series, which is obviously a big goal as well. So I would say it was definitely high on my list, but I need to kind of figure out where the priorities are for the second half of the season still.
Yeah, it's challenging. And meanwhile, it seems, because the Gravel Earth series added so many US races, that it's almost like the Lifetime Grand Prix Gravel Earth double is becoming a thing. Allegedly, I heard Sophia talk about that she may now also try to score high or win Gravel Earth series. And obviously, Lifetime is important to her. So yeah, it's more feasible just because there are more races in North America. So let's talk a bit about stage racing in general. Have you had experience in the format from before, or was it like your first serious stage race?
I've done a bit of stage racing. I did some stage racing on the road as a junior. Nothing super serious, but I had done a few, and I had always really liked it and had done pretty well at those sort of races. And then kind of my second career post-COVID, I did a 3-day mountain bike stage race, and I also did Sandoval, which is, I guess you could consider sort of a stage race, a 2-day race, but not
mini
super
stage
long.
Race, yeah.
Mini stage race, yeah. But I hadn't done a 5-day stage race in a very, very long time. So I was kind of curious to see if that was still something that suited me well, or if it was something I would struggle more at. And I actually felt really, really strong from start to finish. So I think kind of reconfirmed my thoughts that it's a format that suits me pretty well.
Nice, yeah. But I'm a big fan of the format. I'm happy that we see stage racing entering the relevant gravel series. Like Gravel Earth series has a few. I wish Lifetime would also have one, just because it's a different type of racing. It's really cool from like a storytelling narrative standpoint, but also just physiologically, right? A different type of rider can perform well in stage races. And yeah. I'm happy they become more important in gravel, because I think they fit well into gravel.
Definitely. And I agree with you. I think it would be super cool to see a stage race in the Lifetime series at some point.
Yeah, let's see if we will get there. I will not stop advocating for it, that's for sure. So in terms of preparation for the race, is there anything noteworthy that you did, like on the training side, on the gear side, on the packing, nutrition side, that is worth mentioning?
From a training standpoint, I just come off of Unbound a few weeks earlier, so I had a big training block leading into that, which other than just a few days of training before Oregon kind of carried me through, since I did also that Lost and Found race in between. There wasn't a whole lot of time to do more training, but I think I had a really good base of fitness from that Unbound block. And then on the packing side, it's always a bit tricky because I haven't done Oregon before, and it's obviously unique in that you're camping, and there's a lot of challenges there. So I tried to...
Did you have one or two of the boxes? Because like at least last year, I know it was possible to upgrade to 2 boxes, but I don't know if all pros have this or do this.
I got some advice from friends who had done this race before, and I found out I needed to get 2 boxes, especially because I needed to bring a lot of nutrition, and that weighs a lot. And I also last minute upgraded to the VIP tent package, where they construct and break down your tent every day, which is just another thing that adds stress and
and otherwise
effort.
you have to do it yourself.
Otherwise, you do it yourself. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I think both of those things were pretty critical. And then it's also a bit of a challenge because you don't really know exactly what to expect food wise. They did kind of give us some information on what the meals would be, but you don't know like how big the portions are and if you can go back for seconds. And obviously like carbo loading and everything during the stage race is super crucial to your success each day. So I brought a lot of extra food that was kind of non-perishable that I could keep in my tent or near my tent to complement the meals, and kind of came up with a whole plan to make sure I was properly fueled through the 5 days.
So what did you bring? And then maybe we can cross-reference between episodes, because like I just published one where I talked to Lukas Baum about his time at Migration Gravel, and he told me that he only relied on the stuff that he brought, and that was rice and oats for overnight oats, and that's it. So he was eating just this for essentially all the stage race, plus some protein shake. Do you have some more non-perishable good options that you could bring to a stage race if you want to not only rely on the organizer's food?
Yeah, so a bunch of people that I was with brought rice, and I actually didn't, but I wish I did. I think if I did it again, something I would prioritize more. But I did bring bagels, a bunch of Haribo or type of candy for after the stages, just to get quick sugars in. I brought like a whey protein powder to make sure I was getting high quality protein through the race. And then I brought a lot of honey, because you can mix that in with the whey protein to get it kind of a nice carb and protein drink. And then I also brought some canned tuna, which is kind of a nice source of protein that is obviously non-perishable and easy to bring.
Yeah, that makes sense. So take good note if you're planning for your next stage race. You now have a bucket of options to choose from. Okay, so that was this. And in terms of gear and bike setup, can you talk a bit about what you ran?
Yeah, so I started with a bike sponsor, Sarto, early this season, and they have been making really high quality road frames for a long time and wanted a pro level gravel racer to help them figure out like what a really competitive gravel frame would look like. So it was really special. I got to have a lot of kind of input into the frame they were building and what it would look like and what the tire clearance and chainring clearance and all that kind of stuff would be. And I think this is maybe more on the US side right now, but a lot of us are big fans of the mountain bike tires and running a high volume tire with a lot of grip and something that manages the rough terrain really well. And so I brought a bike that had 2.2-inch mountain bike tire clearance. And I rode a 48 tooth single ring with the SRAM Explorer cassette in the back. And it was actually almost identical to my setup at Unbound. And I figured, other than there being more climbing at Oregon, the demands on the bike were quite similar in terms of the amount of traction you need, puncture protection, those sorts of things. So I was really happy with that setup. One of the big themes of the race at the front of the Pro Men's race was trying to keep up with Cam on the downhills, because Cam is a phenomenal descender. And I would consider myself a very good dirt descender, but he was on another level. So I felt like I needed all the traction and descending confidence I could get to try to be competitive with him in those areas.
And I don't know if you can even put it on your bike in the current iteration, but did you think about any form of suspension?
Yeah, the suspension is something that I want to look more into, and probably something I'll run in the future. The challenge with a lot of the gravel suspension forks is that they don't fit mountain bike tires. So you can have that suspension, which helps, but then you have to drop down to like a 48 or a 50 tire. And I really wanted to have that big front tire for traction on the loose descents. So I haven't explored that too much. There are a few forks that will work with the big tire, but I haven't experimented too much with them, so I didn't go down that route for this race.
Oh, but that's an interesting point. So there recently was a pretty interesting episode. Probably you heard of the Performance Process podcast. It's like one of the paywalled Escape Collective podcasts. And they interviewed the guy, Mark Gravelin, who did some research project with Hannah Shell before Unbound. And they looked into the fastest setup, and actually like rigid fork and 2.2 tires were like the second best option, and the quickest option was like suspension fork, but then with like, I think they ran 45 mil tires on there. But you say like for the traction, especially when descending, you prefer would even with suspension fork prefer the widest possible tire.
Yeah,
or the lowest pressure.
I guess a disclaimer is I haven't ridden suspension forks on gravel yet, so maybe my opinion will change as I do more testing in that area. But I did read that article, and I had a few thoughts. One is it's super interesting, and looking at rolling resistance with suspension, I think completely changes the equation versus on a rigid bike. So that's something that the gravel community, I'm sure, is going to dive more into. I did see that the Pirelli mountain bike tires that they were working with tested pretty slow on third-party rolling resistance tests, which makes me think that that could be an interesting data point, but it could also be something that needs more testing across different tires and different tests for us to see whether a rigid with a mountain bike tire or a suspension with a smaller gravel tire is in fact faster. So I think it's a super interesting data point, but I think we also need to see more tests before we can say conclusively that one is better than the other.
Yeah, definitely. And conclusively, like at a given terrain or on a given terrain always, right? Because we have this issue as well in gravel. Okay, but like from a terrain standpoint that you encountered, would you think it would be a potential option to run suspension? Because like the overall how technical it is, I think from what I saw, it's rather technical in parts at least.
Yeah, there's definitely some very technical parts to this race. And you may have noticed Rob Britton was, who was third overall, was racing on a suspension fork. So definitely that is a setup that can be competitive. And another kind of interesting thing is this race had a lot of pavement on certain stages. And it was in places like on climbs where, the race was actually really on in those sections. So that kind of big versus small tire thing gets even more challenging because generally if there is somewhere where a smaller tire is going to be faster, it's going to be on the pavement. So I know, for example, like Payson ran a much smaller tire on the final stage so he could make it over that first paved climb as efficiently as possible, but then had to deal with running that small tire on the rugged descent at the end of the stage. So there's definitely trade-offs to be had there.
So take us a bit through the stages and how they went for you. Stage one. What is the basic profile of the stage?
Yeah, the stage was relatively flat, and I wouldn't say completely flat, but it was smaller climbs and a little bit rougher and sandier. So you kind of felt like it was very power oriented. There was very little room for recovery, places where you weren't on the pedals. And even drafting felt like a little bit more minimal than it usually would because there was so much friction on the ground with the sand in the rougher terrain. So it was very much kind of a power course. And I think it suited Cam quite well. I was just barely able to bridge across to him and Michael when they split on the first descent. And really struggled for about 20 minutes to recover after that effort, and just about got dropped from them, and then was kind of slowly able to ride my way back into the race and recover, and then found my legs in the last 15 or 20K, and was able to sprint with Cam at the end.
Yeah, I just checked out the results. So it was like a 3.5 hour stage, and it was sprint finish, as you say, between the two of you. So at this point, how are you feeling, given also the other people who lined up? You mentioned Rob Britton, Payson raced. I would say a few other notable names like Griffin Easter and so on. So what's your takeaway after day one?
Day one was definitely I would consider like a breakout ride from me, especially with Cam just winning the biggest gravel race in the world at Unbound. And it being a course that suited him quite well. I was thinking that I wanted to limit the losses to him as much as possible, but I didn't think that I would be fighting for the stage win with him at the end. So that was definitely a better ride than I was expecting on day one.
I mean, for one, as I alluded to in the beginning, we do not yet know you as a household name. And then in gravel, we have the added challenge when it comes to understanding riders and their kind of profile. We don't get to see a lot of the races. You already mentioned that you think descending is one of your strengths, maybe not on the same level as Cam, but still you're good there. What would you say is your profile besides that, and what are your strengths as a rider?
Yeah, I get a lot of people asking me what races I like to focus on and which races I like. And I always struggle with that question because I'm very much an all-rounder. I can do everything decently well, but I'm not like a standout in any specific category. So for example, like when Griffin Easter is on and on a good day, I can't stay with him on the climbs. He's a step above, and I'm not quite big and powerful enough to, go blow to blow with the Matt Beers and Brendan Wirtz on the flats. And I'm not the best sprinter in the field, but I can do all of those things pretty well. So I think gravel is actually a really good discipline for me because it requires that full package to be competitive in a lot of these courses. So I kind of see myself very much as an all-rounder, and I can do everything decently well.
All right. Yeah. And then in gravel stage racing in particular, I guess it's even more so if that comes with the durability that you need for stage racing. Probably a good package.
Yeah, I very much found the durability piece one thing that I excelled at in this race in particular. The longer each stage would go on, the better I would get. And a lot of times there was guys that were really putting me under pressure early in the stage, and I was able to drop them later. So I think that's maybe a strong suit of mine.
So let's continue. Stage 2. How does stage 2 unfold for you?
Yeah, so stage 2 was really interesting. It was what we considered the downhill stage. It had much more descending than climbing. And it finished with a big descent and then a big kind of false flat downhill road for the last 15 or 20 miles, I would say. So we knew we had to try to get away from Cam because he was going to make that downhill really hard. And then to make things more interesting, Mattia had a hard fall near the beginning of the stage that we didn't see. But apparently Cam actually stopped to make sure he was okay. Yeah. So we found ourselves in a group ahead without Cam there, and we didn't know why Cam wasn't there. We wasn't sure if he had a mechanical or a crash or if he just got dropped or what had happened. But we realized we needed to try to put as much time into him as we could there, not knowing about the Mattia incident. And then credit to Cam, he was able to stop, make sure Mattia was okay, and got the medical help he needed. And then chased all the way back and caught us right before the big downhill, which I think was the worst case scenario for us. But it was very impressive that he pulled that off.
I heard, I don't know if that is true and if it's even possible to know for sure, but that he had a 2-minute gap that he closed.
Yeah, I think we had almost 2 minutes on him at one point. And he wasn't gaining big time on the climbs, but there were some intermediate downhills and some flat sections on the way up. And I think he was able to push really hard in those sections and bring back big time. And we had a full group of, I think it was 5 or 6 of us working together. So it was even more impressive that he was able to do that by himself.
Indeed. Seems like it's quite an adventure to descend with Cam Jones around. Okay, but so he closes the gap. By the way, really cool that he did wait. I just saw today on Instagram that Mattia actually has like 2 broken ribs, and I don't know if he said like broken collarbone, but definitely an issue with the collarbone as well. So yeah, was not a nice fall that he took there.
I think he also hit his head quite hard. So definitely hoping he has a quick recovery. He was definitely quite beat up after that.
And he finished the stage, right?
He did. He finished the stage, and he actually finished it relatively competitively, which was remarkable given the circumstances.
Yeah, indeed. Probably not like with a head injury potential, not the thing you should do, but nonetheless remarkable. But okay, let's continue. In your race, Cam catches up to you, and the final is briefly after the final descent, right?
Yeah, so we could see him coming right as we were starting the final descent, and it did not take him long to work his way through the group and get to the front. I was leading that descent, and he came by me and immediately just went full speed down the downhill. And this was a downhill that had some really challenging corners with rocks, and they were loose and off camber, but also had a lot of power in the straightaways required to go fast. So it was a weird mix of technical ability and also just physical strength. So I gave it everything to stay with him, and Payson and I and one other guy, Nathan, were able to stay with him for quite a while down the descent. But it was taking everything we had, because we would lose a bike length or 2 in each corner, and then it would be a full sprint out of every corner to try to get back in his draft before the next corner. So it was that kind of effort over and over again. And eventually, after a few close calls, trying to go over my limit in the corners and giving it, 1,000-watt sprints out of every corner to try to get back in his draft, we eventually realized we were not going to be able to do that for a half an hour all the way down the descent, and we let him go. And we still thought maybe there was a good chance we could bring him back on the road, because it was a slightly downhill headwind road section, and there was 3 of us and 1 of him. So even though he was obviously the strongest, we thought we might have a good shot at wearing him out and coming back to him near the bottom.
Can you describe what makes Cam such a strong descender? Is it like his ability to be fearless and carry speed through every corner, or is it a combination of things?
Yeah, it's not just fearlessness, although I think that's part of it. But he is more talented at finding the very, very edge of traction in all of those corners, even on small tires. Like, he knows exactly how to get every little bit of speed out of himself and his bike through those corners. So he can just exit those corners just that little bit faster. And he obviously knows that he's got that advantage. So when we hit the straightaways, and he's so strong, he just puts it to us full speed, and it's really tough to stay with him in those situations. But yeah, I would say his cornering ability on small tires, especially on loose terrain, is above anything I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It's a shame that we don't get more footage from these situations out of many of the races, because there is not a lot of descending and unbound where we now have live streams. But yeah, that's not comparable in terms of technicality.
It would take a very daring motorcycle to film him going downhill. That would be interesting.
Yeah, or drones with a good battery.
Or drones, yes.
So after for the results now, Cam wins. Payson, who I was surprised by. When I saw that he raced, I thought, okay, comeback race, but he seemed to be in pretty good form. So he finishes second ahead of you, Rob Britton in fourth, Michael van den Ham in fifth. And then more guys, more names in the places to come. But what I'd be curious about is, like, after day 2, do you already have a good idea who is good in the competition, or especially because the first stage is flat, the second stage is like this unusual downhill stage. Are you still uncertain at this point in time who the main challengers, competitors are going to be?
I was expecting Cam obviously to be strong. As you said, Payson coming back from injury was a bit of a wild card. He had gotten dropped from our very, very lead group early in stage one. So when I saw him hit that higher level on stage two, I thought, okay, he's going to get maybe a bit stronger every day. And he was only, I think, a minute or so behind me on GC after stage two. Maybe it was 2 minutes. I don't remember exactly. But I was thinking, okay, he's going to really put me under pressure over the next few days, and he's just going to get better and better. And then there's obviously a number of other strong guys. Michael was super strong. Rob was super strong, but they didn't quite have the consistency. So I thought if I could stay consistent, especially with the amount of time we got on them in stage one, I might be less worried about them, but it was definitely, they were still kind of within striking distance. And then Griffin was the other big wild card, because we all know how well he can climb when he's on, and he didn't have his best days on day 1 and 2. But if he came good at the end, there was 2 huge climbing stages, days 4 and 5, where he could easily put minutes into us. So he was still someone I was keeping my eye on as well.
And then comes the next day, stage 3, which, spoiler alert, you end up winning. It's also a unusual stage format, because I think it's officially called the enduro stage, but it's not really like enduro works, but it's more like, I don't know what even the name is. Some Grand Fondos use the format, or just this weekend as well, there was in Europe the Octopus Gravel, which has a similar format with timed segments where there are different, I think one segment is like a climb, right? I don't know about the others, but maybe you can explain how exactly this stage was set up and designed.
Yeah, so as you said, it was 3 segments. It started with a 30-odd minute uphill time trial. Then you would ride a short distance over to the start of the second segment, which was a rolling section. It had some fast descents, and it had a few climbs. It had almost no flat, but it was overall like the elevation started and ended at a pretty similar level. Mm-hmm. And in the final segment,
how long is that segment? That second one, roughly?
I think it took me about 17 minutes. Okay. I don't remember the distance exactly.
Okay.
And then the final segment was a pure downhill. And that was pretty wild, given that we were doing it blind. It was on technically an open road, so you couldn't be sure there weren't cars coming up. Oh. And it was loose gravel and very narrow. So racing full speed down that was quite daunting, I would say.
Okay, yeah, sounds like it. But very interesting design. So how long did you say was the first climb? 30 minutes?
It took me just under 33 minutes. And I think Rob won that segment, and I think he was just over 32 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, interesting setup of efforts, right? Like a solid threshold, maybe a bit above effort first. Then there is you say just a short distance? So how long do you have to recover before the second segment? Like 5 minutes?
They asked for us to start each segment 20 minutes or less after finishing the prior segment. So you had about 20 minutes in between.
To recover. Okay, then you do like this, what you said was a 17, so yeah, let's say below 20 minutes, so really full gas. And then you're already cooked, but then you have to descend this crazy, dangerous, potentially dangerous section in the end. Which apparently you managed to do. So in this format, do you have any like information from people at the roadside, or are you connected to people on the phone who check, like, I don't know what they use, Athlinks or whatever, to know how you're doing? Or is it just a complete black box until you cross the finish line?
It was relatively unknown. I did get a few time gaps from Matt, the announcer who was out there on his e-bike,
Mhm.
to Cam in front of me, like on the time trial, and also Payson behind me. Some of the straightaways were long enough on that climb that you could actually see each other. So it was an interesting dynamic because I think Cam was at a bit of a disadvantage there, not only given his riding style, but also he had nobody to chase. And I could see him, so I had a nice carrot to focus on, and Payson could see me, so he had a nice carrot. So
How
it was
did the
definitely
start work,
easier
by
to
the way?
follow.
Because I don't know this, and that's probably also interesting information. Like, was it like a mass start, or was it like a time trial start? Reverse order of GC?
It was a
How did it work?
reverse time trial. So the leader of GC would go first, and then 30 seconds later, the second place on GC would go, and so on and so
Okay.
forth.
But then in the untimed sections, you could take it at your own pace. If you wanted to max out to 20 minutes, you could do this. And if the other one wants to do it in 18 minutes for whatever reason. So the time gap is not really relevant for the outcome of the stage.
Yeah, so they required that you started in that order on the first segment, and then on the second and third segments, they were more kind of just start it when you want. So there's actually probably more strategy that could have gone into that. I also started 30 seconds behind Cam on the second segment, and I almost caught him at the end. So that was very motivating because I had someone to chase.
Yeah.
But I know, I mean, you'll probably learn more about this, but I believe Cécile and Sophia had a big conversation about who was going to go first into the final downhill. I heard something about that. So there was definitely some strategy as to like where you wanted to lead or be chasing.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I didn't hear this before, but I talked to Cécile in a bit. So interesting. How did, I mean, you won, so I guess you enjoyed that fact, but from a stage design standpoint, did you enjoy it as well?
Yeah, it's definitely a stressful format because you are doing a time trial, but you're also so close to your competitors that you are intimately aware the whole time of where other people are and how they're doing. So it's not an easy stage mentally, but kind of as I was saying before, I see myself very much as an all-rounder, and this stage required a very all-around skill set to be successful. So I think it suited me quite well. And after almost catching Cam in that second segment, it gave me a lot of confidence coming into that final descending segment. That I had an advantage, and I just needed to put together a strong descent, but nothing insane to be competitive overall in that stage.
Do you remember what your time gap is to Cam after this stage?
Overall, after all three segments,
yeah,
I think I pulled back 15 or 20 seconds, something like that. So it wasn't huge. But it was going in the right direction, which was motivating.
And then in GC after this day, it's roughly what the gap? I think after the first day, after stage 1, it was like 1 second only, and then stage 2, 1.5 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think he had maybe 2 minutes on me after stage 2. Stage 2, I had a nutrition issue and lost some time near the end. So that was probably my most challenging day. So then I had my work cut out for me at that point. And I think coming out of stage 3, it was less that I had pulled back huge time on him and more that I could see that I could potentially be stronger on the climbs than him. And given how climbing heavy the back half of the stage race was, that was kind of the mental motivation I needed to see how I could potentially beat him.
Yeah. And then comes stage 4, which I think is dubbed the Queen stage, even though I believe the 5th day is also still pretty hard and a lot of climbing involved. What's your mindset at the start of stage 4?
Yeah, so stage 4 is the Queen stage. It's a big climbing stage. There's very little flat. It's almost up or down the entire day. And the climbs are quite long. A lot of them are between 10 and 25 minutes. So there's a lot of opportunity if you're climbing well to put time into people, and you don't need to think as strategically about being in the right groups because there's not that much drafting. I actually got some advice from Rob Britton at the beginning of the stage, since he had done this race before. He said, if you want to pull back big time on Cam, you need to go early. You need to go on that first climb. So I thought, okay, I need to go full gas up that first climb and see if we can get rid of him. And we actually were able to. We came over the top with, I believe, about 90-second gap on him. So that was quite motivating coming over the top of that first climb with almost being virtual GC leader at that point.
Mm-hmm. And then what happened next in the stage?
So I went over the top of the climb with Griffin, who was clearly on a really good day, and also Michael Vandenham and Matt Wiebe. And unfortunately, Matt was not able to stay with us on the descent, but the three of us, Griffin, Michael, and I,
in terms
formed a breakaway.
In terms of your own climbing ability and your trust in your climbing ability, do you think you're close to? Because already you said earlier, like when Griffin is on a good day, you can't climb on his level. But like with Michael or Rob, do you think you're on a level?
Yeah. So I definitely know I can't climb quite as well as Griffin on his day. And I was completely on my limit on that first climb, staying with him. He was putting it to me big time. But I am definitely on good enough fitness right now that I can be close. So my goal was just to hang on as long as I could and try to stay with him because that was my best chance of putting time into Cam. And then Michael is more of a wild card. I know he's a great cross racer, but I didn't know his climbing ability. Like Griffin, I've known from a lot of my life. We were teammates as juniors. I understand his the way he races very well. But Michael was more unknown.
And then when is the decisive part of the stage?
So we got pulled back by Cam and a large group of people following Cam in the middle of the stage. He used some of the descents in the rolling terrain actually to come back to us all the way. And we were again able to drop him on the next big climb. So it kind of turned into this game of, can we get enough time over the climbs to hold him off on the descents?
And in your group, is the cooperation going well? Are you riding together when you're not climbing, and is everybody doing its fair share of work, or?
Yeah, so the group kind of, after Cam came back, the whole thing got reshuffled, and the group turned into Griffin, Michael, Rob, and I. And everyone seemed willing to work, and everyone kind of had a common goal, which was to try to put time into Cam. I think Griffin was a ways back on GC,
Griffin,
but
yeah, I think he should race for the stage win. But the other three of you, I mean, you are all like still in GC, and it's not yet at the point where everybody should be like super tactical, and I'm not riding for him, blah blah.
I was wondering if people were going to kind of look to me to do a lot of the work because I was the closest to Cam. I was willing to lose the stage if it meant getting help from them. Like if they wanted to fight it out for the stage win and they were willing to help me get there to the end, I was happy to let them fight for that stage win and not contest it. But I did need to get as much time on Cam as possible. So we didn't really have any conversations about that, but fortunately they were all willing to work, and we were all at a pretty similar level for a lot of the day. So it was it worked quite well.
And then how do we get to the final result, which maybe the listeners probably are not looking at the result sheet, or maybe they don't have it remember top of the head. So Griffin Easter wins the stage, and then with a 7-second gap there is Michael Vandenham, and with a 7-second gap there is Cam Jones, which was probably the biggest surprise of the day for observers, for me at least. And then yourself and Rob Britton on a 30-second gap. And then the gaps get very huge, included, and the next race up is already 6:41 behind.
Yeah, so there was one kind of final. There was a long climb before the final descent into the last few kilometers, and we came over. The four of us came over the top with a sizable gap on Cam, and like in other stages, he amazingly was able to put over a minute into us on the downhill and come back. So we thought it was going to be the four of us fighting for the stage, and right as we get to the bottom of the final descent, he just appears, and we realized that he was going to be contesting that with us as well. And then there was one final, maybe 4 or 5 minute, probably 4 or 5 minute climb before the final finish section, and I knew that there wasn't an opportunity to get big time on GC on that climb. So it was more just going to be about fighting it out for the stage. And I was also, I had been pushing hard all day and I was starting to feel it. So I had less confidence coming into that climb. And Cam actually was able to put some time into me on that climb. And that's the climb where Griffin rode away and got his gap. So we came over the top and I think it was Griffin. And then there was 10, 15 seconds, maybe a bit more to Cam and Michael. And then there was another small gap back to Rob and I. So it kind of turned into our two groups chasing each other and also chasing Griffin at the end.
At this point, how impressed were you? I mean, the descending we already talked about that Cam showed, but how impressed were you about his climbing? I mean, on the bigger climbs, it seems like you always managed to drop and distance him, and he came back. But then on the last climb, he stays with you relatively close, even to Griffin. So that is not necessarily what you would expect if you have seen Cam, which I haven't seen him in live, but from the pictures, you wouldn't expect him to be that good at climbing. Or
yeah. So the thing I learned about Cam at this race is he's very strategic and he knows himself well. So sometimes he won't even try to keep up with the leaders over the climb, not because he doesn't think it's possible necessarily, but he thinks it's smarter to conserve a bit of energy and use his strength on the descents and on the flats to come back. He knows that if he goes with the lead person over every climb all day, he may eventually blow up and lose big time. So he strategically kind of rides his own pace with the intention of coming back later. And even though he is obviously not a climber, he is very powerful and can get over climbs when he needs to. So him knowing that last climb was relatively short, I'm not surprised that he had the power to make it over with us. He's quite good at that.
And super mature, what you just described. If like that is the reasoning, then you can only, how do you say, lift your head? No, but you know what I mean.
Tip your hat, yeah.
Yeah, tip your hat, exactly. So and now after this stage, I guess your goal was definitely to close time. Instead, you lose a bit of time. Are you very disappointed at this point, or not at all? Do you still think like the next stage has a lot of opportunity for you?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously wanted to take GC. So from that, the result was maybe a bit disappointing, but I had raced it as hard as I could, and I did. I think I rode the perfect day. I just didn't have. I didn't have the strength to put enough time into him on the climbs to keep him away. So there's really not a whole lot you can be too disappointed about. It's like you played your best card, you did it to the best of your ability, and it didn't quite work. But I would have rather it have gone that way than to not have tried and just to stay with Cam and conserve, because that's just making it easier. You gotta fight for the win. So from an effort and a strategic standpoint, I think I did everything I could on that stage, and I was pretty happy with what I had tried.
And from the outside, I mean, especially now hearing how you started the stage with like really trying to distance him in the beginning, you still managed to be super consistent. And I think together with Cam, clearly until then, the most consistent guy in the field.
Yeah, I was the only guy that had really been in that front selection across every stage, across the whole stage. So I did feel like I was perhaps the most consistent out of the field. And then going into the final stage, I knew taking back 2.25 minutes would be a tall order, and that was going to be super challenging. But I was just going to go in and give it my best and see where Cam was at. I know he lost a lot of time on that stage the prior year, so I thought it was possible that he would struggle. So it was just a matter of seeing what legs he had on that final day.
And I think that was the stage that started with a pretty long paved climb, right? And what was after this the layout of the stage? You have this long climb, and I think there is a shorter, punchy climb as well. And what's the finish like?
It started with that long climb, as you said, and then there was some really rough kind of rolling terrain in the middle with a few shorter climbs, just like a lot of braking bumps and the kind of stuff that's just hard to, like, you almost want a full suspension mountain bike because you're just bouncing up and down more than you're moving forward, which is just very energy sapping, and it was starting to get a bit
And that
hot.
After 4 days of racing already in the body.
Yes. Yeah. Everyone's getting tired. People are mentally and physically drained. That part was quite tough for a lot of people. And then we actually had another long road climb later in the stage. And it was the kind of climb that started paved for 20, 30 minutes, something like that. And then it eventually turned to dirt. And then you kind of had this long traverse over the top of this ridge that was kind of rough, high elevation style trails. And there was actually quite a bit of snow at the top too. So it turned into almost this like cyclocross effort where you were punching through these snow patches and you didn't have a lot of traction and you were in and out of your pedals and running at times. So it was a very dynamic final traverse across this ridge, and then a big, very rough descent down into Bend to finish it off.
And how does the day unfold? Because, like, from looking at the results, it's possible that there was a group that got away at some point. I don't know if on the first climb or wherever. At least 4 guys that could have been riding together for a while. But tell us. Yes.
So the first road climb actually wasn't as decisive as it may look on paper because it had a bit of a headwind and it only averaged about 5% grade. So it wasn't a steep enough climb to put a lot of pressure on Cam. He could kind of still use his power and sit in the draft and hang around. So I didn't really try to attack him there. I thought maybe you just ride a steady tempo, hope that it puts him under a bit of pressure, and then we'll hit him hard later. We had about maybe 8 or 9 riders coming over the top of that climb. And then in the middle section, I think it whittled down, maybe lost 1 or 2 people. And I put in a big attack in the middle on one of the kind of intermediate climbs. Not as much to try to get away because I thought it would be tough to ride away from there, but I kind of wanted to see where Cam was at, whether he was straight on the wheel or whether he maybe struggled a bit and took longer to bring it back. To kind of see maybe how tired he was for that final road climb, which is the one where I thought it would be possible to put some time into him. And he was up to the challenge on that intermediate part. He was straight onto my wheel and looked strong. So that was not a good sign going into that last hill. He definitely still had legs left. Yeah. And then coming into that final climb, Griffin hit it super hard on that hill. He had looked strong all day. And Rob and Michael and I were pretty on the limit to stay with him. And Cam dropped off, which wasn't super surprising because, again, he knows how to ride those climbs and he knows that he can sag off the back and then come back on the descent. So it wasn't quite as exciting when he came. Yes. The first few stages when he came off, you think, oh, he's dropped, we got him. And then this one, I was like, okay, he knows what he's doing. We can try, but it's still going to be hard. So we pushed hard on that climb, and to my surprise, Payson, who had been struggling all day, actually found his legs on that climb and came back to us near the top, and then attacked very hard over the dirt on top. And I went with him, and we dropped everybody else. And when he made that move, Cam was, I think, 1.5 minutes off the back of the group. And we didn't get any time gap, so I didn't know how much it was.
Did you in between already?
Good gap.
Did you in between this already lose like Griffin Easter, for instance? Because I remember you said he attacked and he went off the front, and then in the end he's like 5.5 minutes back. So you must have lost him somewhere.
So Griffin pushed the pace on the road climb, and then when Payson came back to us, found his legs, and he attacked really hard over the on the dirt near the top of that climb. And at that point, I was the only one that could follow Payson. So
Okay.
Rob, Michael, and Griffin all got gapped off. So then it just turned into we knew Cam was way back somewhere. We didn't know where, and we knew he would be coming fast on the downhill. And then Payson and I were off the front, and we thought we had a good chance at the stage win, given the way things were going. And so Payson and I went all in on the downhill to try to not only stay away, but you never know if Cam has a flat tire or, some sort of adversity. It's always possible that the GC happens too. So I thought I should push as hard as I can with Payson and see what was possible.
And you end up crossing the line first, 2 seconds ahead of Cam and 5 seconds ahead of Payson.
Yeah, so we near the bottom of the descent, Payson and I think were starting to think that we weren't going to get caught and it was all over, and it would just be me trying to get as much time on GC, and Payson wanted the stage, obviously. And we went through a very dusty, sandy area, and we looked behind, and out of the dust just appears Cam. And he pulled back a minute and a half on that downhill. And for some reference, Payson and I set the KOM on that downhill that day. We beat every other time, including Cam's from prior years. We did a really, really good descent, and he still came all the way back. He rode through 4 or 5 people, and put on almost a minute and a half into us on that downhill. So we just kind of had to shake our heads and laugh at that point. We were like, okay, that's just a different level of descending from what we can do.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what you were missing. I guess what you were missing in all the stages is like a proper mountaintop finish that ends there. No descent.
Yes, we had talked about that. A mountaintop finish would have suited us better for sure. But then from that point, it was kind of just, okay, let's fight for the stage and see what we can do. And it was actually a real fight. Payson attacked really hard. I attacked. We actually put Cam under pressure. He came off the back at one point on one of the punchy climbs, and then he rode his way back onto us. And eventually we came off the dirt onto the final highway down to the finish, the 3 of us together. And the finish chute was quite narrow. It was hard to pass, and it was long. The finish chute was probably 2 minutes long, and it was a mixture of dirt and pavement and very narrow. So I think we all kind of knew we had to lead into that finish chute if we wanted a good chance of taking the stage. So I attacked both of them on the highway in that final corner right before the finish chute. Mm-hmm. And there was a good bit of confusion. We came off the highway, and this course was well marked. There were signs for the turns, but there was a discrepancy between what the signs on the course were saying and what the GPS route they had given us were saying. And Payson had actually pre-ridden and had pre-ridden that section of the finish and knew what the GPS route was. So I came around the corner. I rode straight by the GPS route because I was looking at the actual physical signs on the course. And I heard Payson yell my name, saying I was going the wrong direction. And I thought I did. So I slammed on my brakes. Cam slammed on his brakes, and Payson went off down a separate road. And then Cam realized that the GPS route was in fact wrong, and we were going the right way.
Oh no!
So then it was unfortunate for Payson because I think he had a good shot at the stage as well, and he ended up basically losing it on that bit of confusion. And then it was just Cam and I into that final section, and I came into the finish chute first and had just enough to hold him off. I never even saw him, so I'm not sure exactly whether he tried to fight for my wheel and couldn't do it, or whether he was just happy with his GC and just sat up, or what happened. But I was able to get across the line first.
Lovely. So your takeaway overall, second place in the GC. What is your personal resume of the race?
Yeah, I was really happy with the way I rode the race. Obviously, it would have been nice to win, but to race so closely to a rider of Cam's level, and it was definitely exceeded my expectations and gave me a lot of confidence coming into the second half of the season and the big Lifetime and some of the big gravel earth races coming up. And I also just had a really, really amazing time. I mean, we had probably 8 to 10 riders on any given day that were super strong and could ride at the front. And it was just a great group of people, super competitive racing, and an unbelievable course. It was everything I could have asked for in a gravel stage race, all in one place.
What we didn't yet talk about is like the vibes in the camp area. What is the vibe like if you're there after the race, before the race?
I think it's jokingly almost referred as like a summer camp vibe. You feel like you're almost in the summer camp for adults. You're all camping, you're all hanging out. Like it's hard to be too cutthroat with your competitors. Obviously, you race them hard during the race, but you're also going to sit and have dinner with them afterwards. So there's a lot of kind of respect and kind of good times outside the race, where you all put the racing aside and just enjoy each other's company. So I really enjoyed that piece of it. And I think that's one thing that makes that race very unique. You think in like maybe in a world tour stage race, everyone's in their own hotels and everyone's separated and outside of the racing itself. And then this year, very much living and spending a lot of time with your competitors.
Are all the guys in the camp, or are there people who took an Airbnb instead?
There was no one on the men's side that stayed outside of the camp. Payson was in an RV, I believe, because he was doing his podcast, so he needed a little extra equipment and stuff. But we were all having dinner together in the camp for the most part.
Nice. And so, did you end up testing the catering, or did you only eat your own food? Because I heard.
Yeah, I did test the catering.
How was it?
Yeah, the food was impressive. It was they had a good carb option every day. We did a lot of rice, pasta, potatoes. They also had a lot of good meat and salads and everything. I tried to stay away from the fiber because you're not really supposed to have a lot of fiber during stage racing. But
yeah.
The food was super solid. It was better than I thought. So I did eat their dinners every night, and then I kind of complemented it with some extra stuff that I had brought. But I have to say that the race was done amazingly, both the racing itself and the whole camp. The logistics Chad and the Oregon Trail team have to go through to make that race work are
Does the
enormous.
Camp move every day?
There's one day where we start in the same place twice. So there's an intermediate part of the race where you don't move, but for the most part, you travel every day. And there were even times when we had to take buses and shuttles to the start of the stage. So for them to make that all work seamlessly was super impressive. I know this is kind of a big topic right now in gravel racing and also road racing, but the safety of some of these races are questionable. And this race was one of the safest I had ever seen. They really nailed all the pieces that make this race work well. And I think everyone was super impressed by the level of everything. And it's also really impressive because they're catering to so many different people. They're trying to put a competitive pro race together with rules that make the race interesting and fair, but they're also trying to cater to a lot of amateurs that are just out there to have a good time. And doing both of those things inside of one event is super challenging. So I was really impressed by the whole production.
Last year, I believe it was, that Ben Delaney dropped his video about Oregon Trail. And in years prior, I had heard about the race and checked results, but really it was this video that showcased for me for the first time what an organization it is with the camp, with like that's how I know these boxes, right? Because they were almost like a joke. And to me, super impressed, and especially if you say you're moving camp that often. It's I don't know if it is on the Cape Epic level. I've done neither of the two races, but that of course is also known for the production value and so on. But it since then, it is definitely on my list of races that I would love to do one day. Most likely I won't, because living in Europe, it's quite an expense to get over there just to do a multi-day gravel race. But never say never. Um, happy to hear that. Also, as a pro, it's a lot of fun and you have good vibes, and it's probably not your default race experience that you have. Hashtag summer camp. Is it like
Yes.
mingling with the normies, the amateur folks?
Yeah, definitely. That's, I guess, another cool thing that we should point out about that is the amateurs are sitting and eating and sleeping right next to all of the pros. So it's a good opportunity to hear about other people's days, and amateurs get to hang out with potentially pros that they follow, and that's a pretty special thing. And I would absolutely recommend it to anyone at the pro or amateur level that's looking for a really cool event.
Were there any amateur stories that made it through the camp whispers, or heroic stuff that happened on course?
That's a good question. There was one shout out at the awards one day about a woman who did the whole, I think it was a woman who did the whole stage. And then she rode 20 miles backwards on course to the final rider on course and rode with them all the way in. Something along those lines. And I thought that was pretty phenomenal, because after those stages, I didn't want to do anything on my bike. I wanted to sit there and eat food and think about the next day maybe, but like that, I was like, wow, that is pretty special.
Must have been one of the earlier stages. I mean, if it was the last one, then chapeau.
I want to say it was stage 4,
okay,
which made it even more surprising.
Indeed.
Yeah.
2 topics beside Oregon Trail are still on my list, unless you have something else to mention about Oregon.
Nope.
So I already said, like, this younger riders coming to gravel, starting their career thing is currently, there is not really an infrastructure for it. We already also addressed that you are in your late 20s and therefore not super young anymore. But I'd like to understand a bit better how this transition went for you. And in order to talk about it, probably you just give us first an overview of your setup. To my knowledge, like, you've gone the privateer route. You already mentioned your bike sponsor. Do you have some other notable partners? Here you can plug them.
Yes, for sure. So I actually, as a young junior, started racing for a bike shop in Sausalito, California, called Above Category. They're kind of like a high-end custom road shop that build titanium carbon bike builds for customers. And I left them when I was 15 to pursue kind of a more mountain bike focused U23 team. And then I came back when I started doing gravel and started working with them again. And they've been a huge supporter of mine. And I've not only supported my bike builds and kits and a lot of that, but they've been great at helping connect me with my bike sponsor, my clothing sponsor, a lot of these other sponsors. So they've been like a really nice networking tool for me. And it's a group of people I've known for a lot of my life. So that's been really special. And then the other big sponsor I have right now is Q365, the clothing company out of Italy. And they make just absolutely phenomenal kits and really, really high quality products. And I was lucky enough to actually get to go visit them after the Santoval race. I flew over to Italy and spent a day visiting both Q365 and Sarto and seeing their headquarters and seeing how they work. And that was super special. So I have a very small program right now, but I have some really cool sponsors, and it's been super fun to work with them. And
you know what we should make happen?
I'm kind of curious to see where it goes from here. What's that?
We need a Cam versus Pitcock descending battle. Maybe produced by Red Bull, but with the Q36.5 connection, maybe you can make it happen.
That would be super cool. I think Cam's descending. Maybe I've talked about it enough that people are starting to understand. But I think people don't realize how talented he is at descending. It would be super fun to see him go against a notable pro like Tom in that category. I would love to see that.
And I think when descending, it definitely helps to be a bit bigger, and Pitcock is small, so I think a lot in his favor. But then, would be a good video. Anyways, so that is the setup, and this season. At some point, at what point did you actually decide that you want to go all in on this? And because in December you finished your job, quit your job, or sabbatical, started your sabbatical, whatever the situation is there. When did you make this decision? And how long did it take you to prepare this?
Yeah, so I guess this actually goes back to the beginning of last season. I was going to try to work again full time and see if I could make it to a really high level. And then I ended up having a really bad crash in early April that basically derailed my whole season. I shattered my right wrist and I dislocated and broke my left elbow and had surgery on both of them and was off my bike until I wasn't racing again until mid-August. So I basically missed the bulk of my season there. And I was starting to think about it at that point as I was trying to get back into racing and salvage a little bit of the end of my season. And I was like, this is going to be a lot easier if I just take a year and don't work and just kind of see how it can go. And if I don't get any faster, or if the results aren't there, then it's easy to go back and work again. But I think I will regret it 10 or 15 years from now if I don't go all in 1 year and just see what's possible. And then from there, to answer your other question, it was like, okay, now I know I want to do this. I got to figure out how to make it work financially. And I'm lucky enough to have a partner that is willing to entertain the idea too. So that's kind of a critical piece of this for me. But kind of figuring out the expense side of things and how much I can budget for racing, because I still, pay for a lot of my own racing and travel and stuff like that. And then making sure we can, pay our other expenses and still live. And then kind of the longer term goal is making this more sustainable. So putting together a program where I can do this in future years. That's kind of what I'm focused on now.
So based on what you're saying, and of course you don't need to get into any detail about this, but I also assume that it's helpful that your job was in the tech industry before, and that the setup you currently have is not necessarily yet something where you can make a great living off on its own.
Yeah, working in tech definitely laid the groundwork for being able to do this for a year. And I think that kind of ties into what we were talking about before about how there's, it's difficult to find a pipeline for a lot of these juniors that are trying to make this work, because unless they have parents that are able to support them financially, it's tough to get to these races. The travel is super expensive. The race entries are super expensive. Yeah. It's not like road or mountain bike where you can just jump in onto the national team if you're talented and they'll just take you to Europe and put you in big races and kind of give you that support. So,
and you at least had the connection to the shop. I forgot the name, even though they have a great blog, because I went on a few interview article things on their blog with you and about you. But so that means you at least have some connections from years before, which many younger folks don't have, and then it's even harder to get started in this model. Which, by the way, makes me an advocate of teams coming into the sport, because they have the natural incentive to identify talent, and they don't primarily care about reach for their campaigns, but about the talent, and that helps to make it more sustainable. Because in the end, I mean, I don't know if you follow other sports, but if you have a draft or something like that, or just young talents and that you can follow who's hot and so on, that makes it more exciting and helps to have something to talk about, which helps a sport as a spectator sport product.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And this is kind of a whole nother conversation, but the teams, I think we may see down the line that we end up with more like non-endemic sponsors, and companies coming from other industries that are interested in sponsoring gravel. And I think that's kind of critical because I don't think there's a lot of bike companies that financially can support, 10 riders or 5 riders right now. Like, they can support maybe one really good rider or maybe 2, but I think we need money from outside of the bike industry to have full-fledged professional gravel teams, kind of like you see in the World Tour. I think eventually maybe that's where things will go.
Definitely. I mean, it's how road cycling and basically every other sport in the world operates. And I'm bullish that the opportunity is there, that it can work to find these sponsors. It's easier for teams to do so than for individual riders. That's also clear. In the beginning, we talked about the fact that you have a wild card and are now part of the Life Time Grand Prix. I don't know how realistic you thought at the beginning of the season that it was. Now that it's a fact, or in the moment when you found out, okay, because like a few things had to go right, not only your own results, but then we had people like Vakoc, Peter Vakoc not taking the wild card, and then there was I forgot the name, but the guy who had to drop out, was badly injured.
Argots, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. When you found out you're in the Grand Prix, were you more excited or more overwhelmed? Because now I assume you need to replan your season to a certain extent. It shifts your priorities. What is your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, the wild card is a big goal. And coming to the year, I thought it would be a stretch goal. I didn't think it was likely, but it was something that I definitely wanted to try. And then Unbound was a bit of a roller coaster of emotions because I had a really good ride there, but I broke my wheel and it flatted about 6 hours into the race, and pretty much thought at that point my chances at a wild card were gone. Even after I finished, I thought I hadn't done all the math yet, but I thought very likely I didn't get the spot. So then, sitting in the airport the next day, I got a call from Lifetime that I did on that tie break get the last spot after, like you said, Petter decided he wasn't going to take it. Yeah, a lot of things had to
right
go
away.
right. No, I didn't. So that was very exciting in the moment. And then I think like with a lot of things, when you accomplish something like that, you quickly shift from like, wow, I'm really excited that happened to like, okay, now I need to figure out how to make the most of this opportunity. So my brain quickly went, okay, where am I in the standings and how do I get better? So I'm sitting 14th right now. It's going to be a tall order, but I'd really like to start fighting towards that top 10. I think that's where I need to be if I want to be in Lifetime in future years, and that's where the money is, and that's kind of what I'm pointing towards. So that's the goal moving forward.
Leadville is a mountain bike race, but not really. It's at altitude. I don't know if that is something you think you will do well at. What is the race you think you will be best at? Little Sugar with your mountain bike background, or?
Yeah, Leadville's a tough one. I've never been amazing at high altitude, and I don't live at high altitude. So I'm going to I'm actually leaving for altitude later today. So I'm going to start preparing for that. But I wouldn't say that's the course that suits me the best. I think Little Sugar, I could have a good ride there, but there are a lot of other really, really, really high level mountain bikers in the series. The Braden Lange and Cole Pattons and Keegan and even Matt Beers obviously is a really high level marathon racer. So that one could be a good ride. I think Big Sugar could also go quite well for me. That one has it's a little bit more of a classic style course, and I think that suits my kind of all around style quite well. So I'd like to have a good ride there. And then I also think I could go pretty well at Schwamigan. That's not a race I've done yet, but I usually do well over those sorts of courses and kind of the shorter races. It reminds me from a power profile perspective a little bit of like a Sandoval, where it's just a really hard 2.5 hours. So I think I'm going to look towards that one to try to get a good result as well.
Lovely. Congratulations that you made it in. We will see more of you. Your name is making it into the general gravel audience's awareness, which is a good thing. Enjoy your time at altitude. And thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, likewise. It was great talking to you.
So now I am here joined by Cécile Lejeune. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Before we jump into Oregon Trail and how your race there unfolded, I'd like that we learn a bit more about yourself, because I think you're probably not a household name to all of our audience yet. Even though I think that is quickly changing. But so I did a bit of research, obviously, before we jumped on, and I think it's fair to say that you are a triathlete converted to cycling. Is that?
Yeah,
correct?
That's right. Yeah, I started triathlon when I was 12. Got pretty good at it pretty fast. So it was like going to European Cups. I won a few national championships. I also got into running, cross-country track races, and running actually brought me to the US. I got a scholarship to run at ASU in Phoenix, and I ran for them for half a season. Got injured, medically retired, which means you're no longer on the team, but you still keep your scholarship. So I was able to finish my undergrad and get a master's degree. And then on the sports side, I wanted to keep doing something. So I joined the cycling club at ASU. It's a very relaxed environment. Collegiate cycling in the US is a great way to get into cycling. It's you go ride and then you go party. It's very conducive to having a good time. So I joined that. Started doing a few road races. Really enjoyed it. And once my master's came to an end, I went back to Europe. I couldn't stay in the US because I didn't have a visa. And it was COVID, so it was really hard to find a job, especially for a foreigner who would have needed to get sponsored for a visa. So I went back to Europe. I went back to live with my parents. Joined a local team in Europe.
And so what we didn't mention before, because like when people hear your name, then they probably away think French, but then when they hear you talk, they think. So actually, I'd be curious because like your English doesn't sound like from somebody who is just speaking English but living in
like this.
Yeah, but I figured actually maybe you were raised like in both languages or something like that.
Yeah,
you were. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. My mom grew up. Well, my mom's English, and so she met my dad, and then came over to France and raised my two sisters and me speaking English. And so it was a little
cool, because that explains my other question that I would have actually had for you, because when I heard you for the first time on a podcast before knowing that you live in the US, I always figured she sounds British, so she must have spent some time in Britain. But if your mom is British,
I've spent more time in the US than in the UK actually, but no, I grew up speaking English, and my whole family's over there. So, and it's funny because I don't sound like someone my age would who lives in England or in the UK. And it's just because it's a family lect, it's a family dialect. I didn't grow up in the UK, so I don't have all the slang that British people my age would have. I don't have the intonation that, like, between when my mom left the UK and now, the language has changed so much in terms of like vocabulary, but also the way that people speak, just intonation, accent, and so I don't have that. And having spent so much time in the US, I've picked up that. Just it's funny hearing British people, because I'm like, oh, I kind of sound like them, but not really. So it's
Not like the
yeah,
young
it's a
people.
weird, yeah, it's a weird kind of mix and match that my vocabulary is. And then sometimes I also have French expressions that I'll say in English, because it's just like in your mind. I'm sure, like you knowing multiple languages
Yes,
too.
sometimes
That
it's just a
happens to you.
mishmash.
Yeah, and I think in gravel cycling, or in professional sports in general, you have so many people coming from different countries and different backgrounds who speak English with a perspective of their own language, that you have this,
Yeah.
it's a kind of pidgin language that everybody speaks. Then you
Yeah,
have
it becomes like the most common denominator version of a language that works for everybody. Or it's like the lingua franca, just that it's English. So in our times.
So I think sports are really interesting environment linguistically. But anyway, sorry about that tangent.
Yeah. No. I mean, I started it, so it's all my fault. But then you already mentioned you went back to Europe, and then like if actually your pro cycling stats profile isn't off, the other episode I had Hayley Hunter Smith on, and hers is like totally corrupted with wrong data. But then you did a fair amount of road racing over here in Europe, correct?
I raced 3 years, 4 years, 3 years, I think. So I did some local races in France, and team took us to some UCI races. The first ones were catastrophic. It's just you're thrown into a bunch with this peloton of World Tour riders, and coming from road racing in the US, where there are 30 of us on a road on these giant 4-way roads, where you can just move up anywhere in the bunch, going to the small French roads that are like 10 feet wide, with 120 people at the start. It's very different.
Yeah, because in Europe, the sport on the bike that you have done before was triathlon, so essentially time trialing on your own.
No, I mean, the triathlon I was doing was draft legal, so...
okay.
I mean, it was time trialing for me, because I'd always exit 2 minutes back from the swim, so it was kind of a time trial for me. But no, it's very different dynamics, and the groups are a lot smaller. But no, so I did that. I got on 2 Conti teams, one that's called Fato, that's still in existence today. Well, actually, I don't think it's Continental anymore, and the second one, Massey Tactic, that I spent a whole season with. That same, I think it's not Continental anymore, because they changed the rules for Continental teams in Spain, requiring minimum salary, which for a lot of teams was difficult to find the funds to do. And so I learned a lot during those 3 seasons. And I got a few good results, but it wasn't something that I could see myself doing long term. And also my husband, well, there's another story. So I met my husband while I was doing collegiate cycling in the US. And so he was doing his PhD, and so he was still in Tucson. And so when I went back to Europe, he couldn't come with me. And so for 3 years, we're just going back and forth between the US and Europe. And I thought, no, I'd prefer live with him than continue working trying to make it as a cyclist in Europe. So in 2023, I went back to the US, applied for a visa, and got my green card, and stayed here.
And what I'd be curious is when and how you then start getting into gravel racing, actually, because, and now we are getting almost to Oregon Trail, the first result or the first proper gravel race that I saw on your pro cycling stats and when doing some research was Oregon Trail last year, which
Yeah.
you won right away.
Yeah.
And that is that your first gravel race ever?
So let's see. I had done like a small local gravel race in my hometown in France. That it just went through our forests. I didn't have a gravel bike. I just did it on my mountain bike. There must have been like 50 of us at the start. So that was the first time I did, but it didn't really feel. I mean, racing in Europe is very different from racing in the US. The vibes there, it's a very different atmosphere. But I mean, I suppose it was still a gravel race. But
and my follow-up question would have been exactly this: if you have any mountain bike experience now, according to what you just said, you at least have a mountain bike. But did you do a lot of mountain biking casually, mountain bike racing? No.
No. I just had a mountain bike at home. That is a hardtail that I bought a few years ago. I just took it to go ride in a forest, and it's not really serious mountain biking. Though I did take it to do bike packing with, which was a bit more difficult than just flat trails. But no, I don't have an extensive background in mountain biking like a lot of other riders do.
Interesting. So the 2024 edition of Oregon Trail, which you won, I assume is similar terrain than the course you did this year. And so it's essentially your first proper big gravel race. And it is, so when I talked to Skyler, which people who listen to us now have heard just before, it's proper technical descending. This year at least mattered a lot. I don't know last year, but you right away feel super comfortable in the terrain and go ahead and win it. That is a pretty good start for your let's say professional gravel racing career.
Yeah. I think last year was just as this year. The Oregon Trail race was very challenging, both in the climbs and in the technical downhills. So like just to go back a bit and to see like how I came to enter last year's edition. When I came over in 2023, I didn't know what I was going to do. I still wanted to ride. I didn't know if I needed to find a job or commit to cycling again to try and make it. I joined Team CCB. They generously welcomed me in their program. It's a road team out of New England, and they said, sure, like we can support you in road, and I had expressed some desire to start doing a few gravel races, and said, yeah, that's fine, we can send you a gravel bike, you can do gravel races. And actually the first gravel race I did in the US last year was BWR Arizona. I did the short course, which anyone who's done a BWR event knows how fun it is. It's more, there's a whole village at the finish line. There's all these. There's a whole brand around it, and that's I really like that. So I thought, I'll look for some more gravel races. And what worked well with the calendar was this race, and having a background in road cycling with stage races, I thought, this is perfect. I can combine my intrigue for gravel with something I know, is racing 5 days in a row. Little did I know it was going to be so tiring with just the camping and just everything around it. I wanted to try the gravel thing out because I knew it was a growing trend in the US, and I knew that physiologically is something that suits me very well. So I decided, to start to register for this, and I trained a bit on gravel before. Tried to, I knew it was going to be a lot of climbing and descending, so I tried to match that in my training. And I think last year's field wasn't as deep as it was this year, so maybe that was good for me to be able to ride with people and not be destroyed by them like we were this year. But
we get there.
But no, I really enjoyed it. I just loved everything about it, especially this event. It's so taking part in Oregon Trail is it's like a week in your life that it's just this bubble where you're around people all the time, and it's people helping each other out, and it's being around the bike, it's being out in nature, it's everything that I love about gravel concentrated in 1 week. And it was when I fell in love with gravel.
Lovely. Yeah, I mean, I wrote a newsletter the other week talking about gravel stage racing, and that it appears for a spectator like myself from all the content on Instagram, on YouTube, and so on, that is really still a special place even within gravel, because just before we had Unbound, which is now so professionalized. There are brands and activations everywhere. And then like what you see from Oregon Trail or Migration Gravel, that is something that still looks like people may say the spirit of gravel is still residing at these events and in best spirits or whatever. But yeah, it definitely feels like there's a certain vibe to it, which is really different.
Yeah.
I mean, these are in their own right, like Oregon Trail. We will get to the camp and the vibe there. It's I think logistically it's super professional as well, but but it doesn't compare to an event like cycling fans may know, the Tour de France that obviously is going on right now, and other events. It's still very different, right? People sleep in tents, and pros and amateurs alike spend there. So it's pretty unique flavor of an event. So let's get into this year's Oregon Trail. You are the defending champion. I assume that you also looked at who else is on the start list this year. As you already alluded to, it's probably, even though it's still pretty small in the women's pro field, I think that you have 10 women starting, but you have really some top level competitors like yourself. We have Sofia Gomez Villafañe, we have Sarah Sturm, and some others. What's your mindset when you get there, or even in the preparation to the race? Do you have it like as a top priority race? You want to repeat your title? Or is it because this year people probably are not aware, but you're also in the Life Time Grand Prix? And what is your so what's your mindset getting into it?
It's funny because I mean, sure, I wanted to do well, and I went up to altitude before, partly for altitude, partly to get out of the Tucson summer. So like preparation was good. I felt good coming into it. So looking at the start list, it was a bit scary because it's all a lot of heavy hitters. A lot of people that I had raced against already, some that I hadn't. Seeing that, it made me excited to race, because it's always more fun to race when you have competition. But this is what everybody says. This is what a lot of elite riders say. They love coming to Oregon Trail because even if you have a bad week, you can just hang out and have fun. It really felt like that. And obviously, when you're in a race, you want to do well. But just coming back to camp every evening and hanging out, and it just makes a bad day go down so much better. And it is just a week where you're hanging out with your friends, but also the whole Oregon Trail community. You get to hang out with everybody, see the love of gravel that everybody has. And so it's a low pressure race for sure. Well, for me at least. I know some other people were going into it with thoughts of getting points for Gravel Earth series because it's part of that series. But for me, it wasn't necessarily that.
All right. So you get there. When do you arrive? Like the
No, I got there on the Monday, and on the Tuesday I got to do a shakeout ride, get all my stuff situated, and then we start on Wednesday.
And important question: did you get like the premium package where they build and take your tent down, or do you need to do it yourself? And do you have 1 or 2 boxes?
I had 2 boxes. I made that mistake last year just to have one, and had to sacrifice a few items. No, I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed, so I got 2 boxes. I didn't get the VIP package because I wanted to be able to put my tent where I wanted to. They put them in a field usually, the VIP tents, and usually it's in the sun and you're all crammed next to other people. So I built my tent myself. But this year I asked a friend to come and work on my bike, and he helped me out with a few things at
Managing
camp, which
all your stuff logistically.
I mean, he mostly worked on my bike and made rice for me one day. He took my boxes from the box depot to my tent, to where I wanted to stay, 2 days. Because he came and he wanted to help out and go mountain biking too, so he was having a great time.
Sounds like it, even without all the added pressure of racing and trying to do well. So is there anything special, noteworthy in terms of your preparation? So you already said you were at altitude before, like in the packing nutrition. Any secret tip or learning from the previous year that you implemented this year?
I made notes of what I needed to do differently, and I didn't do it. I thought, so this year I'm going to eat so much more and make sure I stay off my feet a lot and just hang out at my tent and not do all the other stuff. But then you get caught in the event and you start talking to people and it's so I found it so hard to eat. My body was just at a high level of stress all the time, and so there were nights where I couldn't eat half my plate, and then I'd wake up hungry in the middle of the night, have nothing to eat. Or one night actually, the last night I woke up hungry at like 3 a.m. and I went through my box and I thought, what can I eat? And the only thing I found was a bag of oats. And so I was just eating oats in my tent at 3 a.m. just to be able to go back to sleep. That's Oregon Trail. There are a few things that, and having Michael there, my friend, help me out with the boxes, the boxes and the bikes was helpful.
So take us a bit through the stages. So already people who listen will have learned from the conversation with Skyler what like the general profile of all the stages were, so that we know. But what were like on the stages the most memorable or even decisive moments of the race in your mind? Because probably we can give people who didn't check the results yet of the race spoiler warning right now. So you end up becoming second overall, and you also end up being in second place on all the stages. So that sets the scene. But you were in a very, very close battle, in particular with Sophia during all of the race. So that is the context that probably people need to know. So what are the moments that you think were most decisive or memorable?
So when I look back at it now, I think so. Yeah, I got second every day, which is gutting, and 3 of those days were sprint finishes. So you always think it was not necessary fitness or fatigue in those days. It was more tactics and I suppose freshness too. But the day 1, 2, and 5 were sprint finishes with Sophia. We didn't necessarily ride together the whole day on each of those days, but a big chunk of a day. And then Sophia's just a very good racer, and she is very smart, and she can read the situation very well. And all 3 days she played her cards as she needed to in her last half mile, and she knew when to go, how hard to go, and I wasn't able to outsmart her on those 3 days. And then
there was this story. I don't know if it is actually from this race and from maybe even something you mentioned when you were on Payson's podcast, but otherwise it was at another recent race where she apparently sat in the finale of a stage when she was also away with somebody solo, and then she said, "Yeah, sorry, I will now stop pulling and not go to the front anymore." Was that with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's classic road tactics, and and she knows. Some people will say, that's so bad of her. She should have kept pulling." But the other girls were 2 minutes back. There's no reason for her to pull. She just sat on my wheel and waited for the right moment, surprised me, and got the win. And she did what she needed to do. So.
I mean, how common was it in your road racing days that somebody who did this actually mentioned that I will not pull anymore? Usually you just do it.
Well, usually I wasn't there I wasn't in contention for sprints.
Okay, fair enough.
But no, I mean, maybe not saying it, but just hanging out behind you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
so I found it interesting that she would comment on it and would say to you, "I'm not pulling anymore. Sorry." Interesting.
Yeah, but she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, in these situations, what can you do? Because I think you are also racing against the other racers, and you want to of course. That was not on day 1, right? It was or was it on day 1?
No, it wasn't. That was day 2. We had we were told we had 2 minutes on the chasers. She was sitting first. I was second, third, 3 seconds back, and then Morgan who was in the group behind us, was 13 seconds back on us. So I mean, even if they came back and sprinted with us, if we all stayed within 1 second of each other, we would have. She still would have been leading. So she didn't have that much to lose. But then,
and you have an incentive to keep the gap as big as possible.
Yeah. I mean, same thing. We knew they were 2 minutes back. We were looking back to see if they were coming back on us, and they weren't. So we knew we had some time to play with. She timed it well and did what she needed to do, and jumped at the right moment, surprising me, and got the win. So
And still, like after day 2, if my memory doesn't prove me wrong, I think you're like probably then 5-6 seconds back, because I think on day 1 it was like 1 second, and then on the second day like a 5-second gap or something to that extent. And then you enter day 3, and day 3 is this enduro style stage with the timed segments that matter. How was that day for you, and the format even? Did you, I mean, you knew it from the year before, I think they do it every year, but how is it for you?
Taking a step back and analyzing the race, the days where we had sprint finishes weren't the ones where the time gaps were made. It was more day 3 and 4, and looking back at it, I'm thinking about what I did wrong and what I could have done differently. And day 3, the enduro stage, is the one where I lost time. I lost the most time per mile. So it was a stage of 3 segments. The first one was 6 miles uphill, so 11 kilometers uphill, something like that. It took us 35 minutes. Second was a roller coaster with just a lot of, it was downhill, uphill, and the last one was purely downhill. So my thought was, if we started 30 seconds apart from each other, she started in front of me in that first uphill stage. I thought, well, if I catch her, that's 30 seconds I have on her, and if I'm able to stay with her and we finish together, I'll have 30 seconds on her. And so that's what I did. I rode really hard at the start to catch up with her, and stayed with her for the rest of the climb. So I had 30 seconds on her at the end of that. And then the next 2 segments, I lost a lot of time, and it's really impressive. I'm so impressed with how well she rode the downhills. On the pure downhill stage, she got 30 seconds on me in, it must have been 7 minutes or something like that, 7 or 8 minutes, which, I don't know, that's 20%? No, it's not 20%. 10% of...
Whatever the math is exactly.
It's a lot. So she was going a lot faster than me. On that downhill, she actually came 5th, I think, overall, like with the guys for that segment. So and
a lot of strong descenders on the men's side.
Exactly.
Cameron is now probably a bit notorious for his descending and well known, and I think Skyler himself is also not a bad descender, or Payson also not. So for her, I wasn't aware that she was overall 5th in that segment, so she fully sent So is that probably the time, or even the course design, because this year the descents were so important with like how the finishes were, no mountaintop finishes and so on, where probably your lack of mountain bike experience showed. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think I lost a lot of time on the descents on that stage, but also stage 2, she dropped me on the descent. Stage 4, the Queen stage, well, she took off on a climb, and then we never saw her again. Well, we never caught her again, and I assume she descended as well as she usually does, and probably put time on us. So yeah, I definitely lost a lot of time with the technical aspects of this race.
So still after the 3rd stage, with all that happened, I think you are below a minute back on Sofia, and stage 4 is the Queen stage, allegedly the Queen stage, at least I think the most climbing, definitely. What's your mindset going into this day? Did you sleep, or did you wake up at 3 a.m. before the Queen stage?
Oh no, so that day I had the worst night of the whole week. I slept like 4 hours. It's just, I was tossing and turning in my tent. I couldn't, just going over the events of the day, and you're with people all the time. And so for me, the only time where my brain got to process everything that had been going on was at night, and it was very hard to go to sleep.
And for your sleep score.
Yeah, and that's not. So then I woke up early, hungry, so very bad, and then you start getting nervous about not sleeping. It's a whole vicious cycle, and then every day, because Sophie was staying in Airbnbs, and every day she would post her sleep score. I don't know if this was to mess with our minds.
Mental warfare, maybe.
I didn't ask her, but I think maybe she was. I don't know if she's sponsored by Aura and she needed to do this, or if she was just like, I'm going to screw with them and show them that I slept 9 hours in a very comfy bed in temperature controlled environment. No, so waking
Whatever
up,
made her do it, it apparently worked.
Yeah. No, so also my mistake for going on social media when I was feeling bad in the morning. Well, anyway, no, I came into stage 4 very fatigued, just like nervous system felt wrecked. And the first few miles, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long day, and the biggest day. And once you know you're in that physical state, you just have to play with your mind and keep tricking it into keeping the pace up. And so, on day 4, we start with a paved road into I think 4 or 5 mile climb at 8%. And she just took off on that. We never saw her again. It just felt like shit the whole day. But just had to keep going and try and lose as little time as possible.
Who are you riding with on that day, mostly?
So on that day, so I rode mostly with Sarah. After the first climb, Sarah, Morgan, Michaela, and I group up. Sarah can't pull because Sophia's her teammate. So we get to a paved road, which is a real advantage to have a group on. And we start working together to catch Sophia, but we don't actually want to catch her because we want her to do as much work on her own as we are doing as a group. And before the next climb, we're within 5-10 seconds of her, and we think, oh great, we'll catch her on a climb. It doesn't happen. She keeps riding as she had been doing, and she just had a great day. Sarah and I get rid of the 2 other girls because we were trying to catch her, so there was no group dynamics going up there. And then I just spent the rest of the day with Sarah. She would pull on the climbs, or I would try and pull through, but be a bit difficult. And then I'm a bit more confident than her in the downhill, so I'd take the downhill and she'd have someone to follow. So sometimes I'd drop her, but then she'd always come back. We have no idea what the gap is. We just keep going. It was a really good person to be with because she was trying to get time on Morgan, who was right in front of her on GC. She's trying to get 3rd place on that day. And trying to reclaim 3rd place GC. And I was trying to get back to Sophia, who was in front of me on GC too. So it was great because we knew there's no reason for one of us to work less than the other. That we weren't fighting each other. So it was like having a teammate. It was like we both.
Which helps a lot in a situation like this.
Yes, yeah. And she knew I was feeling very rough, and so she kept like cheering me on. If I'd start losing her wheel going uphill, she'd like keep telling me to push on, and it was so helpful to have her that day.
So sadly, that is, it ends up being the day where you have like the biggest time gap, I believe, again, 1 minute 48 in second place before the fifth day, where I mean, there was still a fair amount of climbing. No, if the fifth stage was the one starting with a big paved climb in the beginning.
Yeah, so there was about the same amount of climbing on day 4 and 5 on the Queen stage, and on day 4 and 5, but 2 of the climbs day 5 were paved, which make them a lot easier. Yeah, so we shuttled.
Selective. I think when Skyler talked to me, he told me that they also, the at least on the men's side, they were surprised that. So in the profile, it looked like a climb that could be selective, but it didn't end up being that selective. I don't know, how was it in your race? Did it already break up on the first climb, or?
No. Actually, we stayed together as a group until the first section of the gravel. So all of us rode together. So we were shuttled. For anyone who doesn't know Oregon, so we were shuttled from camp to the base of Mackenzie Pass, which for people who don't know is a beautiful road that goes through pines, and then it's a lot of switchbacks. They just repaved it, so it was an amazing experience. And then at the top you get to this giant lava field, and it looks like mud that's 10 feet tall. It's just these giant clumps of lava where like there's no vegetation. It's very barren, and so you can see for miles because there are no trees. So it's is
it like the landscapes on like the Canary Islands, if you've been there? That's what I have a reference as like lava volcano landscapes, but it's all dark. It looks like a moon landscape.
Yeah, it was very black up there. I don't know what we can. But yeah, beautiful climb. In our race, it stayed very controlled going up there. No one really wanted to pull very hard. I didn't have to do it. I just had to stay on Sophia's wheel. So like, whatever was going on, I didn't really, wasn't really pertaining to me. Once we finished the steepest part, we got to a false flat before cresting, and a few attacks went there. Same thing, I didn't care, so I just let them go. No one, the other girls didn't want those attacks to go, so they were chasing whoever was going off the front. Which, coming from road, sometimes the people who were chasing didn't need to. And so for me, it seemed silly for them to do that. But maybe they don't have the same tactical vision as I had that day.
I mean, that's
or maybe their tactics weren't the same as I thought they were going to be. But it was good for me. I just had to sit in, so it was fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like you definitely can see in the style of racing, if you can see it. Sadly, we don't get to see a lot of the gravel races, and we just know it from Instagram and podcasts like the one we are doing. But there is definitely, in the racing, you can see the heritage. Is somebody coming from the road or from mountain biking, because these disciplines are raced so differently, and gravel being somewhat of a hybrid, then
and I do think Oregon Trail or any stage race, one of the reasons why I love it is because we have those dynamics of GC and helping each other out. Like in any other race, maybe on day 4, I wouldn't have worked with Sarah as well as we did, as I did, because I would have thought, well, she's going to get me out of the line. But in this case, I didn't care if she got me out of the line. I just wanted time.
Yeah.
And same thing, there's that dynamic with her trying to get away from Morgan. It just makes the day
alliances
so
can
much
form
more.
on the fly,
Yeah.
and people, or in the future teams, can support each other, like just what we know from stage racing on the road.
Yeah, it makes it so much more interesting than a one-day race. And yeah, I hope to see. I hope to race more gravel stage races, because it adds a component to it. It can seem like gravel is one-dimensional sometimes, because it might be like, oh, whoever can go hardest for the longest. But adding that GC component is really interesting.
And I mean, also what is clearly coming to gravel, it's not going to work in all the races because it's cost dependent, but it is teams. I mean, they are already there to an extent, but also for now, it's like the light edition of teams. There is not yet even the biggest teams hardly have people like being full on domestique duty for a day. But that's coming. So the tactical racing is going to be seen more and more.
I agree, and I don't think it'll ever be to the extent of road, because of the nature of gravel, because of the nature of mechanicals. We don't have team cars. If you get dropped, there's no team car to bring you back. If you have a mechanical, sometimes it's like you can't. It's not repairable.
And also the terrain is so different, right?
Yeah.
So on some stage, like for instance, I think Unbound is a race because it's relatively wide in many places. So there you could have more the tactics that people are chasing for their leaders in the bunch. Whereas then on other races where you have more single trail sections and so on, that doesn't work to the same extent.
Yeah, definitely. Also, Unbound is longer, so it's slower. So you can chase back on. You can send someone up the road. So yeah, I think there are certain races where it is helpful to have a teammate or teammates, but others, like maybe BWRs, where it's a lot of single track and very techy sections, that might not be very useful to have a whole squad there. But I do agree. I think that is where it's going, and I do hope to see it going that way, because I think it'll add some. I think it'll make the sport more legitimate, and it'll make it more interesting to watch for the viewers too. It'll be more dynamic.
100% agree. So now, in retrospect, so you already in your intro you said, like a bit disappointing maybe that you ended up in second place for all the stages. That's certainly, like, especially in the moment, one view to look at it. But then, like, from my outside perspective as a follower of the sport, looking at this edition, and you are consistently so close to Sophia, also much closer than all the other also very, very strong women that are in the field. Can you, with a bit of distance, also see that you can be pretty proud of this performance?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, when you're in the race, you want to win and you want to do well, and you're thinking, oh, where could I have gotten time? But yeah, with a step back, I think I was chatting to a friend about this. It also felt as if we were in a different category just because of the accommodation. It does take so much out of you to camp. But yeah, considering that, and I don't want to make it an excuse, but it does take a lot out of you. And that one day where I slept 4 hours, I was just flat. It's probably not only that, but yeah. But yeah, I think
I mean, Sophia also is like not only super dominant in gravel, but she is just a super strong cyclist, like
yeah, definitely.
winner also of Cape Epic and so on, strong mountain bike results in the past. So I think it's not a shame coming second to her and being so close, where it's easy to also get much more distanced. Yeah, you're in your second gravel season. Or first proper gravel season, even.
Yeah. It's definitely. If there's anyone you want to come second to, it's probably her. And yeah, knowing her background and just also seeing her race and seeing how well she approaches everything, it's fine. It would have been amazing to win, but I'm still happy with second.
So, based on what you told me, I'm wondering, will you put a bit of an extra emphasis on like descending off-road descending?
Yeah, I think. I think that's something I'm going to be working on. Leadville's coming up. I like to do specific work for each race. So with Leadville coming up, I'll be doing a lot of mountain biking on terrain that's similar to the course over there. When Little Sugar comes up, I'll be trying to replicate that terrain and that course in my training. But yeah, I think that it is something that I have to work on to be able to contend with the best in future races. So yeah, it's something I'll add to my training in the months, weeks, years to come.
Do you have like a off-road riding type of coach or mentor for that? Because actually, like me, I used to, when I started gravel cycling a few years ago, I just ascended off-road and nothing happened. But then last year I had a crash and broke my collarbone, and since then I'm definitely probably not descending scared, but borderline scared and much more careful, especially when I'm allowed on my own, because that's just not the most pleasant experience. Plus I'm not a pro, there's nothing to win, yada yada. And I'm thinking, would be cool though to have like a descending class on off-road. And nowadays most coaching is just you have a coach and he has access to the training peaks, but you're never seeing your coach or riding together. Of course there are like these there are classes that you can take and people who offer this, but do you work with somebody in that regard? Is that useful?
I don't. I just came back from Angel Fire, which is a bike park in New Mexico, and I did 1 day of downhill mountain biking with my friends. But I mean, no one's coaching me. We're just out there having fun and trying not to crash. They're all trying to do crazy things. I was lent an XC bike, so it's not the most ideal bike, but I mean, it's what I'm going to be racing on. So it was fine. And the main thing was to go out and just enjoy our time there. So that's what we did, and that was fine. But no, sorry, to answer your question, sorry. It might be something that I look into in the future. But right now, I'm like,
I mean, going downhill.
I don't make money from this. I don't make much money. I allocate a lot of, maybe too much money to this as it is, and so paying for someone to coach me when I could go out with friends, it's not in the plans just yet.
That's a very good transition then, because like being fairly new to the game, obviously it's I mean, we're talking about gravel riding, right? It's not like the world tour side of things. So you're not highly paid, and you just need to set yourself up. What is the current situation that you are in? Are you privateering this with partners? Are you still, because you mentioned last year you were on a team, but this year I was under the impression you're more approaching it as a privateer?
So I'm still with the team I was on last year, so Team CCB, who they have an amazing development program. They have helped so many young riders reach continental or even world tour level. That's a goal of the team, is to develop riders, and they're doing amazing with that. I have teammates who just won national championships, got third in the elite races, just got fourth at Tour of Portugal. Yeah, we have really strong riders who are really being helped by the team. And so at the end of last season, they said, well, we can help you out one last season, because I didn't have anything. And so they're paying for entry fees, flights. It doesn't cover everything, but it covers a lot. So I still have to put money.
Are there more people in gravel on their team?
No. So some girls are doing cyclocross. So it's not only road, but it's mostly road. It's mostly road focused, but then this year I'm doing just gravel. So yeah, it's interesting. It's great that they're helping me out, but I don't have any financial sponsors.
And they are from the US?
Yeah, they're based out of Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, in the wake, probably you heard last week, I believe, George Hincapie and his team announced they are doing this modern adventure cycling road team that they want to even bring to the tour and so on, but as a new US team. And then I reached out to investigate if they also plan to do gravel racing, and apparently they do. And I think, like in Europe, for most road teams, gravel really doesn't matter. I don't think so far it matters as a big developmental pipeline. I mean, there are a few cases like Rosa Klöser. She won Unbound, and then because of her Canyon connection, she's now also doing World Tour. But by and large, gravel is more niche in European cycling. But then in the US, because there is not that much road racing anymore, and gravel is so big, you could argue it's probably currently the biggest thing in bike racing in the States. So it also shifts where, let's say, players from the conventional roadside look at and what they support. So cool that a team like this also supports you doing gravel.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for their support. I don't know if I would have been able to race this year had they not helped me out. It's really good to feel supported by them. I don't know what's happening next year yet. I hope I'll be able to make some money out of this and not just go volunteer. It's basically volunteer work at the moment. No.
So give the people an idea. In my prep for this, I saw, and I think you mentioned it in another podcast. Also, you have a lot of jobs that you do besides focusing on your cycling career. You teach French in online courses. I think you work in a bike shop as well. I think there was another thing that you also do. Probably not anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, so I work in a bike shop when I'm not racing, a few days a week. I teach French. I actually have a lesson right after this.
Okay.
I also coach. I think that's my biggest job at the moment, I would say. I have athletes from all over, all disciplines. I help out with my team's social media. Something that I didn't mention in Payson's episode was that I give talks, and I'm going to be starting to do webinars on Red S. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
It's actually on my list of topics. Depending on when your class starts, I have one or two not related to Oregon Trail topics. But as we are there, so if you
we can
do this, probably we go there because I think it's a topic that did get, at least in my part of the cycling bubble, a bit more awareness or traction in the last year. But on here, we mostly talk about racing, not so much on topics more related to training and physiology. But probably, if you can do off the cuff, give like a few minute summary of what it is, why it's so important to be aware, because I think especially in the cycling community, it affects so many people, in particular women, but also men. They suffer from it, and where people should, if they feel they could be affected, where they can look for support.
Yeah, so Red S stands for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sports, and it's a condition where over a long period of time you take in less energy than you expend, so you're not eating enough amount of exercise that you do, or exercise or even movement that you do during your day. And so being in that state of energy deficiency, it's in the lingo, it's called low energy availability, LEA. Being in that state for a prolonged period of time brings a whole host of negative consequences on your body. So it has hormonal changes. It can deplete your. It can be negative for your immune system. You can get sick more easily. If you get injured, it's harder to recover. And maybe the biggest thing, and the thing that affected me and still affects me right now, is bone density loss. So as your body doesn't, it's both like an energy thing where your body doesn't have enough nutrients to replenish the bones that are broken down, and also a hormonal thing where you need, I think it's, well, you need the right balance of hormones in order to build bones back up. My husband's a PhD in physiology, and if he hears this, he'll be like, oh, this is completely wrong. But basically, yeah, the bottom line is you lose mineral bone density if you're in this state for a long period of time.
Yeah.
The reason why I give talks about it and why I'm very well researched in it is because I went through it as a teenager. I had an eating disorder, so I was trying to stay lean as much as possible, and that led to developing Red S, and that's the reason why I medically retired from running. I kept getting stress fractures. My bone density was really low. I've recovered some of it now, but it's still not great. And having low bone density in cycling isn't as catastrophic as it is in running, because you don't have as many impacts, and you won't have a stress fracture as easily as when you're running. So it can be caused intentionally. It can be something that, if you're trying to restrict calories for whatever reason, it can occur. It can also be unintentionally. So some people might have this condition and not even know about it, just because they don't eat enough for whatever reason. If like you're starting a new endurance sport, or you're adding volume to your week, and you don't realize that you need to add more food, or you feel like you're not hungry, whatever reason, it can occur. So there are a few red flags that you can look out for. One of them being cold over time. For women, it can be loss of your period, and that's one of the reasons why maybe we talk about it more in women, because it's pretty scary it's one of the markers that's pretty easy to see, that you don't where you're not getting your period. It's one of the signs in men is that this might be a bit too explicit for this podcast, but it's science. Is medicine, so that you lose your morning erection, and so there's like a limit, a number of times a week that you or a month that you have to not have had it in order to be considered having low energy availability. So
Another thing that I heard is like depression-like symptoms, almost like being constantly tired, not feeling the energy to do stuff, not feeling motivated at all.
Yeah, that too. It's like your body saying, no, we can't go out and train 4 hours. Like, just stay home because we don't have enough energy. And also for men and women, a possible momentary consequence could be loss of fertility, and it's for the same reason. Like, if the body doesn't have enough, and if it feels like it doesn't have enough energy to sustain yourself, it won't have enough energy to create a whole new human being. So those are pretty negative consequences. If you see that you have some of these consequences, if you notice them in you, then you can talk to a doctor, talk to your coach. If there's an eating disorder involved, just talking to different people about it, not staying on your own, trying to figure out why. I mean, it's in the realm of psychology, maybe this, but figuring out why it's something that you're trying to achieve. Just like communicating as much as possible with different people and getting help, and medical advice is maybe number one. Also, like, if you just want to talk about it, I'm very happy and to talk about it with anyone. It's something that affected me so much that I really don't want to leave anyone with this, and I'd be very happy to talk to anyone about it.
And I believe it cannot be emphasized enough how seriously it should be taken if you feel in this state, because, like you already alluded to it, it can last very long to recover from it. Probably you won't even fully recover from it at some point, is what I heard as well. So yeah, it's not something to fool around with. So besides talking to you directly, which of course is a great offer for anybody out there, I can also point you to an episode of one of my favorite training related podcasts, which is the Empirical Cycling podcast, where the host Colin Moore also had an expert on it on not so long ago. So if you go through the feed and you look for it, you will definitely find it as well. So there are luckily more resources, more people start talking about it, but yeah, to be taken serious. Let's probably close on a more positive note, which is you are in the Life Time Grand Prix this year, and you are, as we talk, in the 3rd position overall, which is a pretty nice position to be in, I believe. The next race we already mentioned is Leadville. Like from the remaining program, what are the races that you look the most forward to, and what are your ambitions for the remainder of the series?
I am looking forward to Leadville a lot, both because it's an iconic race and because I hope I'm going to do well at it.
Have you done it before?
Now to prepare for it. No, I've never done it. No. And it's a mountain bike race, but everybody's telling me it's not that technical. So
yeah,
are
you racing a drop bar mountain bike, or?
I was thinking about it, but well, I don't have my mountain bike isn't built yet.
Okay.
So I think it's better to go with traditional and just be sure of what I'm going to be able to have. But yeah, my mountain bike, the frame hasn't arrived yet. I have all pieces in different parts of Tucson. It's a bit of a mess right now, but it'll be fine. So yeah, I'll be racing that one. Then there's Schwammergen, which is a 2-hour flat mountain bike race. I think it's flat. That one I'm not super stoked on, but
Okay.
it's part of a series, so gotta do it. And it'll be a good learning experience too, I think. And then there are Little Sugar, which I've been told is a real mountain bike race with a lot of skills involved, and Big Sugar, which is a gravel race in the same place in where is it? Bentonville.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to Big Sugar. That one is a long gravel race. I think it's chunky. That means it'll be difficult the drafting won't be as important. So for me, the harder the race physiologically, the better. So it'll be great to go and try my hand at those. For me this season, obviously I want to do well, and I'm really happy with what I did at Unbound, coming fifth. But all these races I'll be doing for the first time, so it's as much exploration as it is trying to do well.
One topic that I addressed now a few times on here is how important I think teams are for talent discovery, and your case actually almost proves it, right? Because you probably wouldn't be doing it if there would not be a team that supports you, even though your team is not a gravel specialized team, but they support you. And so essentially this is also very important for your next year and planning and probably putting a program together around you, if I understand you correctly.
Sorry, what was the question? Or just how important teams are?
No. I mean, the thing is, like, you couldn't be racing and being so successful if there wouldn't be teams. But then from now on, if I understood you correctly, you are you're still planning your next year and what your setup will be if you go the privateer route or what other options you have. But essentially, it seems like you are definitely a rising star / contender in this new space by the results you had so far this year. And for next year, people can approach you, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, I'm still looking. It's still a bit unclear what's going on next year, but hopefully that will be resolved in the weeks to come.
What would be more attractive to you? Would you prefer going like the full privateer program route, or would you join a team rather?
So what I've been told between those two options was that if you go the privateer route, it's maybe a bit more work. You have a lot of different contracts to manage, but you have a bit more freedom. Maybe the brands don't ask as much in terms of performance. They maybe ask you to be present, do well, and represent them. But I think there's less pressure in terms of performance. What I've understood from teams is that they exist because of results. So they might ask you to go and win Unbound or podium at every single race. And it's a different approach to racing. If they send 6 people out to every race for you and your teammates, then they expect you to win, or they expect results. So I think that is a difference that I'll have to navigate to see what I prefer, but also if I get offers. So we'll have to see if I can get in contact with teams that seem viable, and if they want to have me on, and then see with like individual brands if they're able to offer me something to support me next year.
I mean, on top, more and more, or to this day at least, many of the teams still have privateer programs where you have your own sponsors for certain categories, including sometimes bikes, right? On par, everybody has their own bike sponsors. I saw, if I'm not mistaken, you're coming for Dylan Johnson in the content department. I think you put out a reel where you go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing all these reviews now, and no, I'm joking. Yeah, the content part of the sport I really enjoy doing. It's cycling is so serious, and you have to get all these. Yeah, in for all the performance part, and you need to get this data down and this and that, and I've always loved being creative, and it's been great to have that outlet through content creation on Instagram. And I have trouble just posting training and results and
bike setup posts
and bike setup, which there's a place for that, and I think a lot of people enjoy that. There's a lot of viewers who consume that, but I think I really enjoy creating something different.
And you should, because like there can be too many posts of that variety, and once they start looking all the same and merging into one, then you don't stick out. I mean, good that you have an affinity for this, because especially if you go down the privateer route in the future, then that is then definitely part of the job description in there. And from what I've seen so far, you have a knack for it. You're also fast, so yeah. Where can people, if they want to get in touch, see more of your great Dylan Johnson, competing with Dylan Johnson reels? Where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram. My handle is Cécile Lejeune. So all together, it's like my name and my last name merged. But if you type in Cécile, you probably find me. So we
will also put it in the show notes.
ILE. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
So people can just click or tap on it.
There you go, the easier route.
Indeed. Cool. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about all this. I think we could go on for more, but as your what is it? Your teachee? No, whatever. Your student.
My student. Yeah, I have 8 minutes to get my lesson ready.
So on that note, good luck with getting the lesson ready. Thanks for taking the time. Talk soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.